Hello and welcome everyone to episode 138 of One Piece at a Time, the One Piece read-through podcast where we read and discuss 5 chapters of the One Piece manga each and every week. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host and freelance letterer at Shonen Jump, Brandon Bovia. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm, of course, Brandon Bovia, letterer of manga like Dragon Ball Super, Kaiju number 8, and many, many more. And you know what? I was trying to lead into a joke about how positive we were last week. But, you know, it's not quite business as usual, but it is sort of like we kind of get a little bit of everything in the set.
Yeah, we're definitely in a transitional set here where we're finishing up the flashback. We are and basically are setting up for our fights.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we're at the point where like there's only so much time left. It's gonna be probably all action from here on out.
Yeah, which I'm okay with at this point.
Yeah.
Like, really what I'm standing at is like, which will I end up preferring more, this or Thriller Bark? And I'm not quite sure yet.
For me, it's no contest. I think Thriller Bark's way better. It would take a lot for Fishman to win me over, but like that flashback, man.
Yeah, the flashback really does push it up over the edge, and
yeah, there's nothing even close to that kind of quality in Thriller Bark.
No. Well, we should finish off that flashback, and let's just go ahead and get right to chapter 626, Neptune Brothers. And time to see what Patty's been up to. We get a joint dessert ship underwater, the Sister Monkfish.
That's awesome.
That's just a cool place to eat.
Yeah, that's a fantastic concept.
And I guess Patty grew his hair out.
I love that dessert is misspelled on the ship.
Oh yeah, he's missing the E.
Yeah.
Nothing too crazy there, but it is a fun idea.
Yeah, I forgot all about Patty. It's cool to see him again.
Yeah, he was a fun character, but you do kind of forget about him.
Yeah.
But time for more Vanderdecken as we get his excuse for how he'll for justifying wanting to marry Shirahoshi, you know, a 4-year-old.
Yeah. Deeply uncomfortable scene.
Yeah, it's like, oh, there's a treasure box that'll age anybody up called the Tamate box. So, you know, it could age her up real quick. And it's like, that doesn't help. She might physically be that age, but mentally, I highly doubt it aged with it.
Yeah. Also, the Tamate box will come up later, so we'll want to commit that to memory. Not even that, like longer than you think.
Huh?
Yeah, that's a setup for something that will come back in a really weird way.
Yeah, because obviously, I was wondering if that would happen, but no, she just aged naturally because, well, he kept failing to get to her. So
yeah.
There it is. He's just ready. He's imagining the treasure, marrying her, setting up his weird, creepy love for her, and that's all we get. It's just like, all right, it's just more Vanderdecken.
I do like that he's like, all right, time to write invitations for the wedding, and then he's like, oh, I don't have any friends, which is just the perfect cap off to that scene.
I wonder why.
Yeah, you know, it's a mystery.
And here's what's I'm mystified by this statement from the World Noble, because apparently it says, I approve of friendship between fishmen and humans as stated in the petition. So if we were to present lots of signatures at the Reverie, this one piece of paper could make our dreams a reality, and then we could all emigrate.
What did she say to poor Miosgard?
Was it Miosgard that said it? That's the question. Was it Miosgard who set this up? Was it?
That is you know what? That is my assumption. I do not know.
Are there alternative, like, my thought immediately was, are they just saying this so they can more easily capture fishmen and mermaids?
That is also true. I wonder if we explore that ever. I genuinely don't know.
I'm genuinely, like, I would have been down for an entire chapter of her just political, like, weaving politically to see how that
seriously. God, that would have been so good. Yeah, because it does feel both the way that she kind of goes up and comes down and is like, all right, I got it. And then not only that, but it's like seeing the signature of a celestial dragon kind of wins over all of the fishmen down here who are just votes piling into the box, signatures rather.
And it's a great culmination of what she's been attempting to do, is that, the kids immediately sign it. They say their parents are signing it. And all of a sudden that just sends a cascade that sends her into tears, because everybody's just filling up the box where it's not even big enough. They got to get a bigger box. And she just breakdowns, tears of joy, because finally, after 7 years, she pulled it off. She finally achieved this dream.
God, and there's something too. Again, we talked about this last week, but like seeing a character like this with kind of like the full emotional range, the way that she how like relatable she was, in how she has to put on a brave face for her family, but is also like, I'm gonna scream.
Yeah.
And so kind of seeing the ups and downs of that. Finally, like she's finally accomplished her goal.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to see that, like, the day after day come, and we see that the brothers have aged up, and basically how we see them now. And this is when she sort of lays out what Vanderdecken knew about Shirahoshi and her power to summon the Neptunians, and basically tells them that we're used to talking to fish, but none of us can speak to Neptunians. Your father can speak with whales, and it's his ability alone, but even he can't do it. But there is a mermaid who is born once every few centuries that can pull it off. So they're just like, oh, that's really cool. That's incredible. But she also says, like, along with that special mermaid will come one who can guide her to use her power for good, which, And when the time comes, the world will change. So that's another legend. So again, quite interesting in that. But of course, she says it could change the world for the better, be the power of love to save thousands when used correctly. But it could also sink the entire world, and it's, can be utterly destructive. But she's not even aware she can control it. So if anything traumatic should happen to her, she might unwittingly cause the Neptunians to run amok. So we have to keep her happy, or at least, defend her from anything traumatic happening.
Yeah, don't stress her out. I do kind of love the idea that, like, there's sort of tiers almost to how much, like, merfolk and fishmen can communicate with fish, and that apparently, even being able to talk to whales is more special, or at least more of a rare ability. But now, like, it kind of gets you thinking, because we've seen the Neptunians, all throughout the series, but, like, I feel like there's some interesting implications about, like, their history and their role in this setting. Because it's like, if there is a rare ability that you can control them, it's kind of like, who, like what are they?
Mm-hmm.
And like, how are they there?
Is it a size thing or anything like that? I mean, it definitely puts into view, like, why Neptune's kind of the leader, if he has that sort of special ability, into size and all that. But it sets up some interesting concepts that might get expanded upon later, probably will. But it also is like, we can't have anything traumatic happen. Next page, something traumatic happened.
Yeah, it is sort of shocking just how unceremonious and sudden it is.
Yeah. There's no setup for it. There's no grand discovery or realization of something happening. It's just the signatures are on fire. In the distraction, she gets shot, and that's it. That's it for Otohime. It is so incredibly sudden, and Jinbei's immediately like, find the sniper. We need to protect the royal family. Let's get the royal plaza. Let's get the plaza out of here. Let's get a medic in here. And the princes don't want to leave. Shirahoshi's already shocked by it all, and that's the opportunity that Vanderdecken takes to touch her. As only just a kind hand on her shoulder.
Yeah. And then the interesting thing, at least for right now, like we don't know who did it, and I feel like it is sort of set up as this mystery.
Yeah, I don't think it definitely doesn't come across as apparent as it seems to. And of course, Fukuboshi's immediately just saying, who did this, they will pay. And all Otohime says is like, no, calm yourselves. I let down my guard. I was so happy about the signatures. It's rather embarrassing, but please, whoever the culprit is, don't be angry for my sake. Don't let the hatred consume you. Shirahoshi, stay strong. And of course, Shirahoshi starts wailing, which could naturally summon the Neptunians and be a bad thing. And I love this moment because I had no idea it was a thing. It's what causes the other two brothers to start doing their weird dances.
Yeah, because of course there can't be like, oh, here's this character who does this weird thing. There has to be some kind of like, oh, there's a tragic element to it, because of course there is.
And that got me. It's like, oh my gosh, it's just didn't even realize it, didn't even think about it, because Oda likes having his weird quirks for no apparent reason whatsoever. But here it's just like, no, this one sings and this one dances as a way to kind of cheer her up, because it's like, yeah, we'll be okay, it's all right, we'll protect our sister.
Yeah, and there's just watching them like dance like with tears in their eyes and smiles on their faces, like they're just trying their best to hold it together for their little sister.
Yeah. And Fukaboshi comes out and says, like, we'll gather signatures again. We'll become great warriors like father. We'll defend Shirahoshi, so don't worry. Orihime says, soon we'll look upon the real sun. And we get the pinky promise, and she passes.
Yeah.
That's, I like you said, it's so sudden. And
I feel like that political assassination, which is what this is, I feel like it often is sudden, you know? That there is no sort of like grander setup to it. We don't really see any sort of build up. I don't know. I read that scene and it felt incredibly just true to life.
Yeah, it was shocking how little left there was for her. I mean, I suspected that it would happen relatively soon because she kind of accomplished her goal, but my God, it was so much quicker.
Yep.
Throws you for a loop. But, well, let's finish off that flashback with chapter 627, Thank You. And we got, I forget the other guy's name, Patty, and
I don't remember either.
But he has a joint ship as well for Teppanyaki. And I didn't notice this at first when I first looked at it, but my God, I laughed when I saw it. I took another look. He has Sanji's wanted poster face on his ship.
It looks like it's made out of like carrots and vegetables.
Something like that. It is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And perfectly in character.
Fantastic. Oh, I'm blanking. I feel like, did we ever see a scene with the Barate folks reacting to Sanji's wanted poster?
Yes, we did. We saw them laughing like crazy, but they're like, yep, that's Sanji.
Okay, I was going to say, because that sounds like what they would do, but I could not remember if that happened.
What's really impressive, actually, okay, I was wondering if it was based on his old curl or new curl, but no, it is based on his old look. Good detail. We begin the chapter with Hody proclaiming that he got the assassin. It's him. I know it's him. And Hody immediately shoots him dead. And it's apparent that it's like, Jimmy's like, this is too cruel because it's a pirate. And Hody's just like, this is reality. It's a fact. And that's when Hody just lifts up this pirate that he took out and says, it was a human who killed our queen. And I'm sorry, as soon as I saw that, it's like, oh, you son of a... Because...
I was going to say, do you buy that for a second?
No, I don't buy that for a second at all. Because I don't remember exactly, but this is just too convenient.
I thought about this while we were discussing the last chapter. I think it's the fact that the signatures got set on fire. I was like, there's no need for a human to do that.
No, they wouldn't care about that. Why would a pirate care about that?
Yeah, a pirate specifically. Yeah.
No.
I
totally buy that the human is the one who shot Otohime. I think he was threatened and put up to it by Hody.
Ah, yeah. I genuinely don't remember what the exact circumstance is, but yeah, no, it's pardon the pun, but it's pretty fishy.
Oh yeah, and of course that just immediately sets everybody off. It's just like, their will is crushed.
And I also feel like, God, because we were talking last week about like how stories can change to fit a narrative, and how like I feel like this is sort of, presuming if our assumption is correct and that this is Hody's handiwork, I feel like this is the way that he proclaims Queen Otohime was killed by a human, I think does benefit his narrative and ultimately his goals.
Absolutely. I mean, him saying that he joined the guard just becomes stronger. I completely buy that wanting to be with the humans is abhorrent to him, even at this point.
Yeah, and to watch sort of like your society and your the royalty and your military basically just completely go against your ideals.
Yeah, I I definitely suspect, which feels kind of obvious, but I do love this, where the king actually locks himself in Shell Tower, where Shirahoshi will eventually be cooped up.
These 2 pages are some of my favorite characterization from Neptune so far.
Oh my gosh, it helps him so much as a leader, because he just seemed kind of goofy before.
Yeah. It's very. I mean, and there's nothing wrong about being laid back, but there was sort of this the vibe that, again, it was a level of kind of like incompetence and just sort of like it felt like nothing really mattered. To kind of see him so emotionally distraught that he's just like, "Don't let me out."
Yeah, basically, you gotta lock me in here until my bloodlust is gone, because I would kill him even if he wasn't already killed.
This line too. This feels very Fisher Tiger, where he's just like sobbing, like, why am I not allowed to kill the one who murdered my wife? That is something I will never understand. Well, and on the prior page leading up to that, where he's just like, this is all part of the cycle of hatred and the cycle of vengeance. And so like his mind understands Otohime's dream, but his heart is too broken.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of them. I think that's just him really displaying the mindset of the people. And, he also explains why he never really tried to help Otohime, because he wasn't fit to. As a warrior, he's killed many to avenge his brethren, including humans. So, I had to just sort of sit by and let her peaceful methods be completely untainted. Some things only a warrior can protect, but this was something that she should do. And how could I let this happen? And
yeah, again, because it feels so very similar to the kinds of conflict, I guess, like the conflicted feeling of just like, where does like my morality begin and end?
Which he does improve based on what we see in the modern day.
Yeah.
Like that time has healed it for him, where he doesn't want to just, he doesn't hate all humans. So that certainly helps. But Shirahoshi is also, being 6 now, started getting those love letters from Vanderdecken. And I've fallen in love with you, I think. Now marry me.
Yeah, I guess it's not to the point where he starts throwing weapons at her yet. So it is just like, Neptune says to capture him, but we don't have to worry about that yet, at least.
Mm-hmm. But this also explains why he doesn't let any of the children go to the funeral, because, well, the sniper's accomplices maybe still be around. So, yep, we get the funeral for Otohime. We get the final words from Fukuboshi saying, "Mother said that we would see the real sun. The next reverie is in 2 years, so maybe that's too soon for your hearts and minds to become as one. But there will be another in 6 years, and in 10. We will realize our mother's dream, even if it takes the rest of our lives." And again, the characterization for the princess here, like, they've been sort of nothing-ish characters, but this really like rallies you behind them.
It feels like they have a goal, right? It feels like they have like convictions.
That desire to just fulfill their mother's dream and dream of the sun once more. And he's like, we know it will take time, but bear with us. And it's sure enough, it's like I said, 10 years would be the next one after that. And that was 10 years ago when that all happened. So, yep, thanks to their hard work, the signatures actually started flowing in once more. And that's when Jinbei ends the story. So there's the origin of the Fishman pirates. Arlong becoming a warlord is what set him free to go do all that. And, I would have stopped him if he ever ran amok, but because of him bribing the Navy, the information never reached headquarters.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about that part.
Yeah. So that's the explanation for why he's the one that set Arlong free. I don't think he's quite as culpable as it makes it seem, but I did see this line from Sanji being like, "All right, now kill yourself." I'm like, whoa there, Sanji.
Yeah. It feels like Sanji completely ignored the entire moral of that story.
He really did.
Which I get it, because it's all for Nami.
That's all he cares about. But Nami, in an amazing moment of growth, is just like, no, it's Arlong that I hate. I'm just glad you weren't an accomplice, and you're Luffy's friend, right? It's true that I suffered, but I met some great people because of this. It's all connected. I can't just hates you because you're a fish man. And this
That shocks Jinbei.
oh yeah, that gets Jinbei. This makes Hachi start crying. She's like, it's not all bad. I'm having a lot of fun now. And God, that growth from Nami, to have that recognition, because we've seen what that did to her. So
yeah. I mean, absolutely. Like, I think it's on one part growth, and I also feel like, man, how do I want to word this statement? It's like we've already kind of seen from both sides the sort of like inherent trauma of it all, right? And so I guess like knowing now what Nami knows, I feel like it isn't a guarantee necessarily that Nami would that she wouldn't hold some kind of grudge behind it, right?
right.
And so to kind of see her kind of just like plainly say like, yeah, I mean, like obviously it was a horrible thing, but that it's nice to see that she's kind of above it all a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, there are definitely characters out there. It's like, this is the man who unleashed the man who killed my mother. I want revenge on him because I'd have a mother at this point. But she, I think, recognizes the hardship she went through and how much it sort of means to her in this grand point. So it's one of those ideals where it's like, yeah, it's been a rough road, but if without that rough road, I wouldn't be where I'm at now, and I'm happy with where I'm at now.
Mm-hmm.
Again, interesting growth there. But of course, we also have Frankie just like, I love you, Fishman. Just crying over the story.
Yeah. And it's also, I mean, I feel like we talked about this earlier in this arc. I'm drawing a blank. There was that bit when they were leaving Impel Down where you kind of got the sense that like, oh, Jinbei has some kind of guilt for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so to kind of finally to let that out and to just kind of sob over it, it's nice to see that kind of come around. That it feels like Jinbei's been relieved of his guilt finally.
Yeah. And fittingly enough, because this is Luffy, he doesn't care about backstories. It's just the present that matters to him. He slept through the whole thing. He wakes.
I love that he was like, "What happened to the robber the queen caught?" That was the very beginning.
But Nami becomes friends with Shirahoshi, and they have things in common. And now it's time to start thinking about what to do because, Hody and his crew have the castle. They have Neptune. They have Brook, Zoro, Usopp, and Papagu. So what should we do? And Hachi's just like, well, if Hody's scheme is working, then Kingdom's probably descending into chaos now. Jimmy's like, okay, yeah, you were at the Fishman District, so you know about Hody's plan. Basically, they're getting more information. So here's our ramp up from Arlong. Because Arlong hated humans, but would not harm any fishmen. Hody does not care. If a fishman is friendly with humans, he will kill that fishman as well. And that's our ramp up with Hody, which I think is also what makes him less interesting because there is no code of honor there. Even with Arlong, you don't see that. You only see that code of honor when it comes to money, but Hody has nothing like that.
Yeah, he's just an extremist, basically. But I do think if I'm grasping at straws a little bit, the way that Hachi kind of goes on to say, like, the reverie is this year, and so like King Neptune is going to tell the world, the people of Fishman Island want to immigrate, and so we have kind of these opposing ideologies where now Hody is he is acting to stop this. That is more interesting than just kind of like blind racism.
Yeah, it makes sense why we have a timetable now because they have the signatures finally. It has been the 10 years. The reverie is going to be happening. So what I was complaining about in an earlier episode was like, man, it just seems so random that this happened. There's always that convenience of the Straw Hats showing up at a certain time, but at least we finally have that convenience a little bit more better laid out. It was like, okay, that's why the reverie is so important. That's why Hody's doing it now and not just so happens to be that he does it with Luffy. It's just now. But we end the chapter with Hody getting on the same screen that Fukaboshi said about his mother's dream and wanting to get the signatures again and saying, well, I'm Hody. Basically, allow me to introduce myself. And I think with us discussing these chapters, you can already sort of tell how there's a bit of a drop in quality. Like I still enjoy the rest of the flashback, getting more to the details, but it's just like all of a sudden things are just like, okay, it's laid out. This is how it's going to go. As we'll see for the future chapters, Hody's still not interesting.
He's still not. Well, man, and I even feel like if Hody's not interesting, his goons are like kind of the worst. Like I think all of their gimmicks are duds. They're real bad.
They might be more duds than the Skypiea minions.
I think so. Yeah. And I think that's. I mean, I feel like when you kind of think of a typical like shonen arc, like there's always sort of the ramp up, right? Sort of the lead up, the higher they tend to save the cool characters the higher up the ladder you go. But when the top of the ladder is Hody and there's only really one tier of goon under him, and it's just like, oh, these guys, like you could just take one look at them and know that they're fodder and they don't matter.
There's only one of them amongst them that's kind of interesting, but we also know who he's going to go up against. It's like, well, that's not going to do much. Yeah. But well, let's get to it. It's time to start setting this stuff up with chapter 628, Spring Cleaning. And got another 2-page spread with just some action shots of all the characters, some hints at abilities and so forth, especially Robin's that I didn't take notice of.
Oh yeah, which I think that's this chapter, right?
I might be. I'm not 100. No, I think it's next chapter that happens.
Okay.
So a hint of like a power we did not know about. So we'll get to that eventually.
Yeah. Oh, we see one of Chopper's ugly ass forms.
Yep. I'm also going to comment on that one because, dear God, you're not kidding. That is a terrible form.
It's bad.
Oh, poor Chopper.
Indeed.
But into the chapter itself, we of course get confirmation that the thing that they wanted them to step on is a picture of Otohime.
Yeah, obviously.
And they're just, all the people are crying. It's like, we have no choice. But I do like the one guy behind him saying, hey, Queen Otohime will forgive us for this. And knowing what Otohime, yes, she would.
Yeah, and I like that there's sort of a little bit of a, oh God, I'm sorry, again, pun not intended, but there is sort of a wrinkle to the situation where it's not just about, it becomes not just about stepping on the photo.
Yeah, the expansion of the plan, like, okay, we have a ticking clock at this point to work with.
Yeah.
That was going to be introduced very soon. Thank God.
Yeah.
Hody introduces himself and says, so I'm going to remake this kingdom and I'm going to be your new king. I'm going to usurp the throne. So, yeah.
Not only that, he lays it out pretty cleanly. Like, if you want to stay friends with the humans, get out. Go.
Yep, because I'm going to have the citizens of the Fishman district come here. They all hate humans. They're eagerly awaiting my new orders. And just like, the fugitives and outlaws are going here? What the heck?
This is a hood takeover.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's like, hey, even if you trust them, they will always betray you. And we can't allow that. And the princes are just like, oh, it's on. We're not going to let you get away with this. And it's like, hey, the Neptune family is what led you astray. Open your eyes. I'm going to lead you properly. And you got those darkened eyes from Jinbei. He's ready to kill.
Yep.
And again, I like that Luffy not exactly reacting, just sort of taking it in, assessing. But he reveals that, of course, he has Neptune captured and shocking everyone. And that's when Nami's like, it's sort of our fault the king was captured. Well, mostly Zoro's.
Yeah, I love God, that reaction shot from Jinbei is so good. He's like, what did you people do?
But yeah, here's our ticking clock. 3 hours from now in the Concord Plaza, which I love that name, he's going to execute Neptune. And more interesting is that he's found the petitions. Those who signed the petitions 10 years ago, she risked her life to get this letter from a celestial dragon. I have it right now. And once it's destroyed, it can never be replaced. And in this giant box, here's half the signatures of all the people on Fishman Island. And, convenient. It's a list of traitors. So all of you that signed this petition, we're going to kill you.
Yeah, easy. Just like, all right, we don't have to worry about stepping on the picture anymore. Like we no longer need sort of like your symbolic refusal. So yeah, now. Although it is interesting, I do wonder, because to me, they've got signatures of more than half of the citizens. That makes me wonder how polarized this decision actually is to go live among the humans.
I think there's definitely some polarization still there, but I think this is too extreme for them.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we don't see them like any people are like, yeah, let's go for it. But it's a lot of shocked faces, and we don't know who signed, who didn't. But it's quite obvious by the end that Orihime was beloved. This is not a popular opinion, I think, just to go this far.
No, not at all. Yeah, and I mean, especially to basically, usurp the throne. This is a takeover. You know what? Okay, sorry. It's bad podcasting to have a thought, almost say it, and then don't say it. This is Fishman Island's January 6th. I said it. I'm sorry. I said it.
You're not wrong.
I'm sorry.
Just don't ask the date. We don't want to see how prescient Oda is.
Oh, God.
But Hody ends it off by saying, hey, Straw Hats, I'm sure you're watching the monitor somewhere. These are the humans that thwarted the ambitions of Arlong and stirred the rage of the fishmen. We've got your friends captured. They're going to be drowned at the same time that the king is executed. So, going to make you an example to the humans on the surface.
I love how overcomplicated it is. It feels. I've called Hody a mustache twirling villain in the past. This feels like he's committing to the bit.
He really is.
he loves his theatrics. You know what? I can respect that
to some degree. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's this is the spring cleaning of the old Ryugu kingdom. It's time for it to be reborn as the proud Fishman Island. And Fukaboshi is like, no, that's not happening. He's ready to go. We also get a fun little interaction between Zoro, Brook, and Usopp. And they're just like, they acted all scared when I moved. This is Brook. And it's like, if you had stayed playing dead, you could have freed us from this, but you didn't.
That's a good point.
It's just, I also love that Usopp has an impersonation of Robin, even gets her face down.
Yes.
That's so good.
I feel like he did that with Sanji, I think, too, and probably some of the other Straw Hats at some point.
I think so, but it's funny to see them mimicking Robin in that way. It's good.
Yeah.
He's upset, but again, he's not showing fear in the same way that he would before.
Yeah. He's being able to joke around in the situation. I consider that character development.
Mm-hmm. The worst the most fear we get from him is do something, Zoro, and also and Zoro's saying, well, at least Nami got away, right? She just needs to bring Luffy and the others here. And it's like, well, what if they don't come?
Which I feel like that this is an entirely reasonable reaction to have when you're about to drown.
Absolutely. But something far more interesting happens on the next page that just, I don't know anything. I just know it's a term I've heard, but it threw me for a loop because Robin finds the poneglyph. And it's like, it's different from the others I've read before. It's almost like a letter or maybe an apology, but who is it apologizing to? Who are you, Joy Boy? And again, I've heard that term, but I know nothing about it.
There's our first mention of Joy Boy, which that is sort of, oh man. It's Oda playing the long game is obviously, right?
Yeah.
We'll learn a little more about whoever this Joy Boy person is. I think we'll learn even sooner what is actually the poneglyph about.
Huh.
I don't think we'll learn the whole thing, but I remember sort of what the apology is.
Oh, okay.
And I'm trying to remember if I'm just extrapolating information about that from what I currently know, or how much about this are we going to learn in the near term? Because in the long term, it's going to be a while before this whole Joy Boy thing. I feel like is kind of this is Oda setting up for the end game. Basically.
As far as I know, it's relatively recent, but I don't know. I'm just going off of the bits and pieces that I saw pop up from people talking about things. But I make sure I stay out of context, so I have no idea. So it really did shock me when I saw this term tossed out here.
Yep, all the way here. We have several hundred chapters before it'll come up again, I'm pretty sure. And even
naturally.
Then, no, there's some really good stuff that I can't wait to unpack in like 2 years. So I'm giddy that it got teased here.
Maybe that's another reason I love Robin so much, because you just get lore when she's around.
Exactly. That's it. She's the lore character.
But I do love that we go back to Luffy and, you know, see his reaction to Hody's threats and all that. And he's like, hey, my bounty's at 400 million. When did it go up?
I got to call this out. Jinbei, you know, he points out, like, you became instantly famous after the war. Once a bounty passes 300 million, it usually doesn't go up anymore. Wrong. I will just incorrect.
I was going to say that feels wrong.
Yeah, I was going to why did he say that? Why did Oda put that here?
I guess it's the same way that Toriyama tried to get rid of power levels. Like, everybody's got stuck on power levels and that whole concept, and it never really left, even though he made sure never to mention it again after Frieza.
Yeah.
So I guess he was trying to clear the slate. It was like, I don't know how strong they are now.
Similar, yeah. Although that did get me thinking. I got to go look up some bounties after we're done recording, because that rings some bells in my mind. But yeah, ignore that. What Jinbei just said, ignore it.
For sure.
Patently false.
But Shirahoshi showing some bravery because, you know, Luffy's also ready to go for a fight. And Shirahoshi's like, I have to go help him as well. And Jinbei's like, no, both of you stop. Don't actually go there. So the thing that Hody fears most in the kingdom is Shirahoshi's ability. It would be futile for him to mold Fishman Island to his ideal nation if you could just send Neptunians to destroy it. So the king as a hostage is the key to preventing you from doing that. So he will absolutely capture you and, you know, basically, well, not kill you, probably just hand you over to Vanderdecken.
Yeah.
And Vanderdecken is a useful
fate
tool.
Worse than death.
Oh, yeah. And Vanderdecken serves as a useful tool because, well, it keeps Shirahoshi at bay.
Although now there's this interesting little paradigm where Shirahoshi, she said that she's heard of this power, but she's never spoken to any of the Neptunians, so she doesn't even know it exists. So it's like, well, let's just not tell Hody that.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, we don't want that to happen. And it makes sense considering, you know, she's been locked up for 10 years. When would she have gotten a chance to talk to Neptunians?
Yeah, that's also true.
And Luffy's like ignoring it and just like, all right, Shark, take me to Ryugu Castle. Sanjay, take care of Wimpy. So... And Jinbei just immediately stops. It's like, no, I can't allow you guys to fight Hody. That's when Frankie and Chopper, like, because we're human. It's like, a little complicated when you two say that.
Yes, but no.
We end the chapter with a bit of a confrontation between the two because, well, Luffy's like, hey, Hody's got my crew. If I don't get him, my friends and everybody else will be in danger. So if you want to stop me, go ahead and try. And that's when Jinbei's like, oh, you're his little brother, all right. If you won't stay put, you leave me no choice. It's like, oh, we're having these two fight. And you know what?
Don't fight, Dad.
On one hand, it's like, why won't Luffy listen to Jinbei? But on the other hand, yeah, we saw what happened with Ace. Of course Luffy's going.
Yeah, absolutely. I do like, we'll get a little bit more of it in the next chapter, but there is sort of, at least, I appreciate that Jinbei's kind of looking out for the optics here. Mm-hmm.
He certainly knows what could actually happen with all this. So
yeah. This will be a bad look.
Yeah. We do have another SBS. It's been a while since we've had one.
Yeah, seriously.
Only thing of really any major consequences, the confirmation that Megalo is based on a Megalodon shark, which...
Yeah, it's, you know.
Yeah, okay. Sure. Why not? All right, chapter 629, Former Warlord in the Way. And, we get to see Cocoa Village.
Yeah, this one really just put a smile on my face. Mm-hmm. I love the mayor, what's-his-face? Genzo?
Genzo, that's it.
Yeah, good pull. Yeah, freaking out. It's like, oh, Nami's just... She's been upgraded.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's, oh gosh, I'm blanking on her sister's name.
Nojiko.
Doing well, selling the tangerines. So
yeah, just they got a nice little grave site set up for Belmere. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, it's quite cute. And actually, I just realized, like, who's the kid? And I realized who the kid is. It's the kid that Nami smacked when he wanted to go get revenge on Arlong for his father.
Oh. I didn't remember that at all.
It just clicked with me. It's like, why is there just this random kid here? So I started racking my brain over kids from that arc, and yeah, that has to be that kid.
Oh man,
fun pool there. But we get into the chapter itself, and yep, it's ramping up. It's like, I have to go to the castle to save my friends. I'm telling you to wait. And everybody's like, no, don't fight. And Luffy's just like, all right, Shark, take me to the castle. And that's when Jinbei just like, nah, Shark Brick Fist. And that wave is able to send Luffy back. And that's where we get just how potent Fishman karate could be, because it's the control of water.
Which is a wild explanation to get after 500, 600 chapters.
It shows how much more advanced Jinbei is at Fishman karate than anyone we've seen up to this point, because the shockwaves pulsate through the water and the air in the body, because we're just using any little bit of water. Holy crap.
I thought this was also interesting. Because this is basically where the fight ends, but Luffy goes in for his jet stamp, and Jinbei like blocks it, and that had me going like, okay, Jinbei, dang.
Mm-hmm. He's like, all right, Jinbei still like definitely strong, which is awesome.
Yeah,
Love to see him on open foot, but sort of equal footing there. And that's when we turn the page and see Robin just like, nah, it's enough. And she's there in the middle of the two of them. It's like, what are you doing here? Get out of the way. And Sanji's like, oh no, Robin's in danger, and goes to rescue her / kiss her. And the three of them, Sanji ends up getting punched by both, and the two of them punch each other as Robin disappears.
Yeah, which is an interesting, like, you read that and you're like, wait, what was that?
Yeah, what just happened? But then here comes Robin out of the forest, and we don't get an explanation, but I'm pretty sure Robin can spawn her entire body elsewhere.
Yeah, she can make shadow clones now.
That's awesome.
It is, right? Like, and again, it's some just nice visual storytelling. Like, it's not really harped on for too long, but like if you're paying attention, you're kind of like, wait, what was that?
It's pretty great, especially just how calmly she comes out. It's like, I don't know what's going on here, but aren't you friends?
Yeah.
Don't fight.
I also love that she was in no danger of getting hit, and Sanji just eats it anyway, which is perfect.
I feel like he still deserves it.
Yeah.
But Jinbei tries to start explaining things to Luffy. It's like, okay, what do you think would happen if we actually start fighting Hodeo on Fishman Island? Every time the Fishmen have opened their hearts to humans, it has led to tragedy. Humans are brutal creatures. That is the history that Fishmen have experienced. So, of course, there's Arlong, who some here think he was hunted down just because he was a fishman, not knowing the crimes he actually had. So, if you, the one who beat Arlong, were to enter the fray, what would happen there? He'd just become a martyr. We can't allow Hodie's ideals to take root here. You can't beat him. That would just defeat the purpose. Which does make for an interesting rub.
I think that was why Jinbei knew. And that's why his message was like, don't fight Hodie.
I think he suspected Hodie was definitely going to be pulling something soon. Didn't quite realize in what way it would be. So that's why he's still caught off guard. But that's when Sanji's like, no, we still need to save our captured friends. So if we don't do something, Fishman Island will fall into Hodie's hands. So we also have good friends living on this island. We can't just stand back. And that's when Sanji, again, showing why he can be a good character, is like, can intuit these things. Like, hey, you kept refusing to tell us who roughed you up, but didn't you just say that Hodie would kill any fishmen who were friendly with humans? Did they attack you because you sided with us?
And there it is.
Yep. That's all it took. Basically, like, yeah, we have a reason to fight. So get out of the way. We got to go. Like, we understand your reasons, but we have to save our friends and the people of this island. Who cares how it looks for us? Although,
interestingly, because that's where the scene ends, like, it kind of doesn't resolve. We kind of don't really know what comes of it.
No, I just realized that. Yeah, you're right. It's just sort of left with Jinbei saying, I will take care of this.
Which you can definitely understand why Jinbei feels like he needs to shoulder this responsibility himself, because I'm sure, as you know, as a member of the Sun Pirates, feels some level of responsibility for it all in the first place.
For sure. But yeah, we got this whole conversation. Well, Luffy doesn't take it well. He just says, then I'll just beat you up. He's basically going back in circles.
Yeah, which is why I was like, we actually, they didn't come to an agreement there.
So basically, the idea is like, well, the castle is basically impregnable. We just need to leave a few men behind until we come back. So let's take the king out and go execute him. And the cut that Zoro gave him still stings, which is why he's still popping these pills just to numb the pain.
He's not beating the fraud allegations.
No, he is not.
He's such a fraud.
And you can see that cut, like fresh cut along his chest. Zoro got him good.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of like, and I know, man. I feel like I get a little self-conscious complaining about like that. There's more villains aren't just interesting because they're strong and because they're threatening, but I do think it is kind of like, man, Hodi's just kind of like, dang, that Zoro, like I'm still feeling it. Like, what are we doing here, man?
Yeah, I think it's because he's a main villain. Like I try to like,
yeah.
I'm like thinking to the other villains we've fought and defeated. Like I was thinking like, like who's kind of a lame villain from other previous ones, and I think to what is it, Mr. 4, the base and the mole woman.
Oh yeah.
They're not exactly interesting on their own, but they're fun.
Yeah. Which is you have to have something to latch on to. Like I either need you to have like an interesting ability or something to go like, oh, I can't wait to see how our characters are going to overcome this, or like like have a fun gimmick or personality or be funny. Hody is none of these.
Yeah, like he cannot compare to Arlong or Crocodile or any of the recent villains that we've gone through. Like maybe one of the East Blue villains, but again, he's just immediately overtaken by Arlong. And
yeah,
again, I'm hoping he can bounce back at some point in some way, but I'm just doubtful.
It's really impersonal to me. Like, and I guess that's kind of my problem with this arc as a whole. Even though obviously there are stakes and there are reasons for the Straw Hats to be here and to fight for the good of Fishman Island, but it does feel like kind of the more emotional like investment is just it's just not really there.
Honestly, I think the emotional investment will come once it's revealed that he is the one who killed Otohime. At least again, I'm going under that assumption. It's like that's when you'll have that sort of click moment where
maybe it'll all come together.
Maybe. In the meantime, we're going to time to meet some of these crews, the crew of Hody. We got Daruma here who just likes to chew through a bunch of stuff.
I just read these scenes like maybe an hour before recording this podcast. I've forgotten all of this. It is just in one ear and out the other. I don't care.
It's like my thought process looking at these guys is like, all right, who's going to fight him? Like, I don't know, but
right. Yeah. He seems like a good Usopp opponent.
Maybe. Looks like there are 4 shark fishermen officers and 1 giant squid, plus the island's best swordsman as a bodyguard. So it's all up to the brothers to have this happen. And hey, we turned the page and Brook has a new ability. That's cool.
Yeah, he's going ghost.
Yeah, he can send out his soul to go explore and do some reconnaissance. So he's learned that Papagoo was left behind. Almost everyone's left the castle. So we got some information. Well, how did you get this ability? He's like, well, one day I was praying and my soul just left my body. I went through the walls left and right. And the day I learned this technique. What do you think I did first?
And just somehow, as a ghost, bleeding out the nose.
Yeah. And then Usopp, a little out of character there. He's just like, I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll accept it just because not the Usopp thing, but the just how random and out of nowhere it is. Just like, my soul left my body, and that was that. Yeah,
it's for whatever, maybe because he doesn't have a body, it doesn't feel as icky with Brook.
Yeah, I think so. It's just detached enough to at least to be funny. Also, way later, but this ghost ability has like one of my favorite interactions.
Oh, nice. I'm looking forward to that.
Like this ability actually has some really cool utility.
But initially they're going to have him go find Papagoo to get a key for the chains, and that's when Zoro's like, no, just find me one of my swords and I'll get us out of here. So there's this great interaction between Papagoo and Brook, as Papagoo's just like, oh God, there's a ghost after me.
Yes.
But that's where it ends.
That's a good interaction. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got another SBS. And we get to learn the other justices, because we have Aokiji here with Lazy Justice. But what are the other two? What are the other admirals? Well, unsurprisingly, Aki Inu is Absolute Justice. And Kizaru kind of took me off guard. Uncertain Justice.
Yeah. This hits for some reasons that have become more apparent in recent chapters.
Huh. That's fascinating.
Yeah. Kizaru will get his characterization. He is kind of the probably the least interesting of the three admirals right now. I think is that
I think that's fair,
maybe,
because I'm trying to thinking too, it's like he's sort of like a more active, lazy guy.
Yeah, like personality wise, he's because he's kind of in between Aki Inu and Aokiji. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of not as hardcore motivated as Aki Inu, but not as lazy and laid back as Aokiji. I do want to point out there's this bit here where I'm making an educated based on what I think the Japanese might be, because apparently Aokiji's catchphrase used to be "burning justice," although I think that is a literal translation. I'm guessing, because I don't know. I think burning an ice is like, oh, that's weird. I think it might be more metaphorically moeru, which could mean to like passionate or like motivated. So okay. I think the joke is that he went from motivated to lazy.
I guess that does make a lot more sense.
I haven't checked the Japanese, so I don't know for sure, but that's an educated guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he apparently went through a lot of thinking and resorted to lazy justice, while Kizaru probably saw everything from a distance and chose whatever he thought fit best over the past 2 years. And thought best.
That fits.
Very interesting. I guess he's still trying to figure out his own justice in a way. But, I mean, even Oda's excited to see what happened in the last 2 years for the Navy, so yeah, that should be fun.
We got a lot to learn about the Navy.
Mm-hmm. He does confirm that pirates cannot claim other pirates' bounties. They just get the notoriety of defeating that pirate, which makes sense.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, let's get to chapter 630, Getting Violent.
This is a great chapter title.
Yeah, it is. And we check in on Rogue Town, or at least the guy who sold Zoro his new swords, and even has a poster of Zoro's wanted poster in the tub.
Which is just great. Yeah. Unfortunately, I kind of think this cover is the most interesting thing about this chapter. I was bored this entire... Because it is all setting up Hodi's henchmen.
Yep.
And they're all boring.
It's a sad fact that we start out with normal citizens. I'm looking at these guys. They don't look like fighters at all. They got older men, mermaids, mermen. It's just guys with brooms, and they have all these guys chained up.
Yeah, what happened here?
That's a good question. And you know, you got the joke of this guy being unmotivated with the way he ends his sentences with tink, as in it's not very interesting. But one of the other fishermen are able to get one of those energy steroids into his mouth, and he starts going plink, plonk, tonk, dosun, and really revving up and getting stronger, so he's enough to break out of the chains, and then he's up to go kapow and zubao and kaboom and wabam, which that's cute but not interesting. But it's also one of those things like, man, these guys suck without drugs.
Yeah, that's really it. It's like they're all just kind of and I feel like that is kind of the point in some way. And as we see, I think later in this chapter, there is sort of I can at least see that there's like a tragedy to the situation with how they're wrecking their bodies for hatred, basically, for what is a very kind of flawed goal. Mm-hmm. Which to what I think I've said an episode or two ago, where it really like there's not enough time, or we don't really go into it, but it does feel like Hody is kind of a victim in his own way. He's not really depicted as such, which is tricky.
Yeah, not especially because I don't think Oda wants you to feel too sorry for him or anything like that.
Yeah, which I think is fair, because again, like this feels like a rejection of Hody's ideology is just patently bad. Like that is, I think the storytelling is pretty blatant about that.
Yeah, it really feels like obviously these are just a few men trying to take over an entire country. So the drugs make sense in that aspect, where it's like that's the only way they'd really stand any kind of chance. They kind of got they got a lucky deal with the Straw Hats already taking care of the army.
Right.
I think it would have been much tougher.
They got lucky, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, yeah. On one hand, yeah, we already know that Fishmen are just naturally stronger. So that's, makes sense that they'd have trouble overpowering their own people, but they don't look like fighters, and that's what makes it so odd. Either way, we get to see what I think is the most interesting of these minions, which is Hyozo, and there's a reason he's constantly getting drunk. He gets really good at swords when he's drunk.
Which is, you know what? I feel like that we all know that person in real life who like gets really good at something when they get hammered.
Yeah, I thought it was just a natural extension of like the drunken fist style. So
yeah, it does seem. Yeah, I can buy that.
So that should make for a pretty fun fight against Zoro, because obviously he's fighting Zoro.
Yeah, of course.
Then we get to see that again, not a strong demonstration of these guys where it's just like, this guy can go invisible, and they're getting attacked by this random chain, and oh no, there's a cockroach over here, so let's smash it. And it turns out the cockroach was on top of this guy who can go invisible, and they've just beat him down. It's just like, okay.
All right. Funny that we have roaches underwater.
It really does. It's kind of odd, but that's the thing, is like, how do you build up these guys as strong when normal citizens have beaten them twice? Two of them already.
Yeah, and the way that he has this, and that's kind of the gag here, is that Zio here has this like threatening speech, but he's bleeding out, footprints everywhere. He's just like, you have nowhere to run. There will be no escape. This is a revolution. And it's just like, yeah, he's committed to the bit, trying to pretend that it didn't happen. But you're just like, oh man, this is.
But again, it takes away their threat level.
It's not cool.
It takes away the threat level because the people are reacting as if it's just the gags.
Yeah. There's nothing here.
No.
Unfortunately.
We do get an update on the princes, and they're heading towards Concord Plaza. They'll be there in less than an hour. So basically just declarations like, we're going to uphold Mother's ideals and not let this happen.
Yeah. I am really curious because I don't remember at all. I hope the brothers. I hope they kind of get their flowers.
I really do too.
Once the action starts, I feel like they need a good win.
Yeah, I want to see them beat somebody. Like I really do. Like these guys need, as you said, a win, because I also like the discussions. Like, okay, what do you think of the Straw Hats? It's like, well, despite her the Charlie's prophecy, I didn't sense any malice in them. So the mermaids seem to like them. So
yeah.
But we shouldn't speculate.
That conversation is frustrating to me at another level, because that prophecy was kind of the inciting incident for a lot of this stuff, and everybody just kind of believed it. And then here they are, like, maybe they weren't so bad. And I'm just like, my brother in Christ.
Yeah. Then we have this weird guy, Ikaro, who's our giant squid fish man, who they're trying to fight this sea bear thing, and they use fire against it, so to take on the sea beast, but it also sort of tries out him, but then he doesn't in response because he remembers his pet Daedalus, who apparently got turned into dried squid.
Wow.
He sends out squids that can suck the water out of people it hits in order to drain them of all their fluids, and then pounds them into dried squid snacks. It's just for a joke.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, he's got kind of like a sumo gimmick to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it, really. I don't care.
But we look above, and we finally see Hody coming down from the palace, heading for the plaza. They have the king strung up, and Neptune's despairing because he's just not strong enough to take care of this stuff anymore. He's just, I can, you imagine people losing their partners and just sort of losing their strength, and this is definitely the case with the Neptune.
Yep.
And it's already, an hour has already passed. There's only 2 hours before this all happened. So they're wondering where Hody is, and that's when Neptune says, like, oh yeah, that drug gives the strength at the cost of a shortened life. This is the price you're paying because of your addiction. And yeah, we've definitely seen Hody take it the most. And he's starting to get some side effects.
He just straight up says it hurts to breathe.
His body's being torn to pieces. And it's like, is this a side effect? I knew those pills were dangerous. You think?
Yeah. It seems like a little bit of a flawed plan, but who am I to judge?
Apparently the CB should be under his control, but it's the first time they've seen them actually terrified of Hody. So Hody seems to be going through some kind of transformation, which...
Yeah, maybe he's becoming more like animalistic.
It could be, which honestly, he'd lose the little personality he'd had, but he also might become more interesting as a threat. I
kind of buy it, yeah, if that's where this is going. I don't remember.
Maybe a comment on drug addiction, but it's something.
Yeah, I can at least sympathize with the like, oh, he's wrecking his body all for this, for hatred.
Yeah. Also, I think another reason we weren't really into this chapter, that's the end. It's like, oh, the animals are terrified. It's like, that is not a great cliffhanger for us to go out on. It's just like, usually there's like, oh, I'm excited to see what happens next. It's like, no.
Again, that's what I mean when it's kind of like we're kind of getting it all, you know. We ended the flashback and you're just like, man, that was some great nuanced storytelling. And then we got further and further along, you know. I like the stuff with, you know, Luffy and Jinbei and the Straw Hats and stuff, you know, kind of getting that. Just that further breakdown, but like the scenes where it is just Hody and his goons kind of terrorizing average people. Not even terrorizing, the average people got hands. They could fight back. So it's just like, it's definitely the least interesting part of the story. And we had a whole chapter of it.
Mm-hmm. Like, I know you have to set them up. I know you have to set up the fights, but it's just... Isn't this the third time we've been introduced to him? And it's just like, whatever.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Like, we've already seen them before, so to get them again, and I know it's been a minute, you know, it's been a whole flashback and then some, but like, you have to introduce them again because they're so lame and unmemorable. And having to, like, I think there's it is kind of an interesting concept of like the pacing, right? Where I feel like, because there was that one set we did that was, I think, maybe an episode or two before the flashback, where I was like, this is terrible. But that was mostly for like storytelling. Like, the story was moving. And it was the storytelling decisions I didn't like, where this just feels like, did this need a whole chapter for all this junk? I kind of don't think it did.
Doesn't exactly feel like it. More just means, like, usually, like I said, we usually get something really interesting to end off with, like, oh, what's gonna happen next? And it's just like,
it's the most like wet fart of an ending to this podcast I think we've had
in a while.
It's just the most kind of nothing.
Yep.
It's bizarre.
Well, there is one other bizarre thing in the SBS, and that turns out that Strawberry's, it's not the hair that goes up that far. That's his actual head. He is just a massive cone head, which is just weird.
It's weird, but I love it. I also love that he was apparently, that was not his first appearance.
Yeah, I completely missed it. He was at Enos Lobby and the Paramount War.
I have no recollection of this.
No, me neither. You'd think he'd stand out, but I got nothing. But yeah, that's that.
It's the true Fishman Island experience.
Yeah, I'm still excited for what comes next, but man, it is. You can definitely just feel the decrease in quality once the flashback ends.
It's weird that it feels like, because, you know, we only have but so many chapters left in this arc, and it feels like we're going into our confrontation with zero momentum. It feels like all of the pieces are in place, but it isn't like exciting, or there isn't that sense of escalation or build up. So,
well, we don't feel any worry for Zoro in that group. I'm not overly worried about Neptune, since there's still 2 hours. And it's like, we got a ticking clock, but I'm like, I'm not too concerned, because we haven't had that much time to really dive into him, because a lot of the time in the flashback, he just sort of silently watches Otohime. So Neptune didn't get him, you know, he got some characterization, but maybe not enough to really raise that concern, because now it's just like, oh, of course Luffy and the others are going to rescue him. So I don't know. It's like the pieces are there, they're just not cohesive.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, anyway, with that, I believe we've said all we've wanted to say about chapters 626 to 630 of One Piece. Thank you so much for listening, and you can find more of my ramblings and stream VODs over at BitNerd Games on YouTube, or BitNerd with an underscore at the end on Twitter. And Brandon, where can everyone find you at?
I am at Brandon Bovia on Twitter, talking about anime, manga, games, and my job, and just see you in like 2 years ahead of time where we get to talk about Joy Boy. That's what I'm most excited about. we got a ways still.
Yep. Sounds good. But if you'd like to help us out more, you can support the podcast over at patreon.com/Derek Bittner. That's DERRICKBITNER to listen to the next episode ad-free 3 days early. And make sure to return next time as we discuss chapters 631 to 635 of One Piece. So until then, my friends, bye.
Remember to take life one piece at a time.
I can't hate you just because you're a fishman. So you don't get to pity me just because of my past. I'm fine with my past because I'm happy in the present.